Hey there, team. Welcome back to the Challenger podcast. I'm your host, Dave Glazer in Fort Collins, Colorado. And today we're continuing our series on the Enneagram with the Type 1, otherwise known as the perfectionist or the reformer. And today in this episode, we'll break down the good, the bad, and the ugly of how Type 1s show up in life and relationships. And a disclaimer before we dig in, each and every Enneagram type has their own flaws, fallacies, and opportunities for growth. So if this episode rubs you the wrong way, maybe you're a 1, or maybe you know a 1 in your life that you're close to, and these traits show up and they just kind of rub you the wrong way. That's an opportunity to look in the mirror of the Enneagram. And if you have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Ask me questions on Instagram at Coach Dave Glazer or on TikTok at Dave.Glazer. Let's dig in. Type 1s bring an incredible sense of integrity both into the world and their relationships. They're typically known as dependable partners. They're reliable and responsible. They typically show up on time and they keep their word. They have a very strong moral compass, which means that they guide relationships with honest fairness and almost always with respect. They encourage a lot of growth. Ones oftentimes push their loved ones to become better versions of themselves. And lastly, they're very consistent. Enneagram 1s are rarely flaky. And if they commit to you, they're in it for the long haul. So whether that be a friend, a coworker, a boss, a subordinate at work, or a romantic relationship, they are very committed and consistent. And overall in relationships, Type 1 as a partner looks like somebody you can count on. They'll work to resolve conflict fairly, invest in the health of a relationship, and oftentimes set the tone for stability in your relationship as well. When they're at average health, and otherwise known as the bad version, because of their inner critic, Type 1s become very rigid, judgmental, and overly critical, which can rub partners the wrong way. They have extremely high standards, which means that they can expect perfection, not only from themselves, but also from their partner, their lives, and the relationship as a whole. They tend to correct behavior, but they do it out of love. And they tend to correct behavior, and out of love, they might point out what could be improved, but it can land as criticism and not be received well. So I oftentimes recommend a slow startup of like, hey, do you have a moment to talk about something that's been on my mind? That's a great slow startup phrase that works when a Type 1 is bringing something to their partner, or their partner is bringing something that they want to discuss with a Type 1. Enneagram Type 1, the perfectionist or the reformer, has difficulty relaxing. They can get so focused on doing things the right way that fun and spontaneity get lost. And those are two of the things that really keep the spice of a relationship going, is spontaneous invitations and spontaneous fun. Being playful, being spontaneous are all things that keep attraction alive. Ultimately, when they're at average health, a 1 can be filled with resentment. If they feel their partner isn't pulling their weight or isn't serious enough, committed enough, etc., 1s can typically begin to stew. And they do it internally until it explodes. They're part of the anger triad. 8s, 9s, and 1s are part of that gut-centered triad. So they typically lean more towards anger, and it can be seen as explosive anger. Ultimately, at average health, an Enneagram 1 in a relationship, they can tend to be nagging, impatient, and they lack playfulness. And partners in this, and their partners in this mode may feel like they're never measuring up, even if that's not their partner's intention with a reflection or with a what could feel like criticism to their partners. And then finally, when Enneagram 1s are at their worst, the ugliness shows up in relationships. And at their worst, 1s can slip into harsh judgment, moral superiority, and emotional rigidity, which I, as an 8, can relate to a lot. It's very vulnerable to feel emotional. And so that rigidity can show up in both the 8 and the 1, but it's for different reasons. Type 1s at their worst can be critical and controlling, which as an 8 is my biggest fear. Type 1s may police how their partner talks, acts, or even how they load the dishwasher. If you've had a roommate in the past that is critical of how you do chores, they might be a 1. Typically at their worst, they can be unforgiving as well, especially when hurt. They struggle to let go, and they keep score. They keep score of your mistakes if you're in a partnership with a 1. And I know how that can feel. Keeping score is one of those 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, according to the Gottman Institute, where it's contempt and it's resentment. And when that builds up, it can fracture a relationship. Partners with a 1 at their worst can feel like they're walking on eggshells, and their loved ones may feel like nothing they ever do is good enough, even down to things like household chores, how they speak, how they talk, how they show up, and so much more. 1s at their worst can also be emotionally withdrawn A deeply unhealthy one can become very cold or punitive if they believe their partner has failed them in any way. And that's a perceived failure, not an actual failure, like a true betrayal. And ultimately, in relationships, when a one is at their worst, this can create a very toxic cycle where the partner feels judged or diminished, leading to distance and disconnection instead of closeness and intimacy. So, like I said at the beginning of this episode, each and every Enneagram type has their opportunity for growth. The beauty of the Enneagram is that it points us towards transformation. And when open to it, for ones, growth means leaning into grace, acceptance, and flexibility. They can learn how to, in order to move towards growth, they can learn how to practice self compassion, forgiving themselves so that they can more easily forgive others. They can let go of control, they can work on letting go of control and allowing their partner to do things their way, even if it's not perfect. Enneagram threes, are you out there? Can you hear me? Can you relate? Ultimately, bringing in playfulness into the relationship, like humor, fun, and spontaneity, can help balance out your seriousness. If you're a one and you're struggling in a relationship, bring in some play. Find an inside joke. Find something that's deeply connecting that the both of you can belly laugh about. And then finally, moving towards growth looks like focusing on what's good. Celebrating progress instead of pointing out flaws always strengthens intimacy. It drives connection and it gives feelings of closeness. And ultimately, in relationships, this shift allows ones to be inspiring and supportive partners, lifting up their loved ones with compassion instead of judgment. And finally, that's the good, the bad, and the ugly of the type one, especially in relationships. If you're a one, remember that your integrity and dedication are both beautiful gifts. When you balance them with grace, patience, and so much more, you can create relationships built on trust, respect, and love. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe here on Apple, iTunes, or Spotify. Share it with a friend you think might be a one or is in a relationship with a one, and leave me a written review. That really helps us get the word out to more people about how the podcast could benefit all Enneagram types in a relationship. Next time, we'll explore the good, the bad, and the ugly of Enneagram Type 2. Thank you very much for listening to the Challenger podcast. Until next time, wishing you health and happiness wherever you're at in the world. I'll talk to you soon.